Hi, I'm David Hassell, 155.com. Today on Dove Barron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, we're going to be talking about how to bring out the best in your team. Stay tuned.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dove Barron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dove Barron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dove Barron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dove Barron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. My name is Dove Barron, and I'm here to connect you to your deep greatness. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dove Barron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series, where today we're going to take an insider look at why performance reviews need to go the way of the dinosaur and what we need to replace them with. If you're a new listener, a new viewer, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in, we're about to go full Monty. If you're a regular, big thank you to you because you made us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners, and we are very grateful to Inc.com for making us the #1 podcast to listen to make you a better leader. So thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Look, there are literally millions of podcasts out there. Thousands of them focus on business and leadership, but there's only one that focuses on the soul of leadership, and you're tuned into it right now. So remember, we always need your help in staying relevant, so please get yourself over to iTunes, rate, review, subscribe to the show, and share the show with everybody you know. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. As a leader, whether you're a CEO, C-suite leader, sales leader, entrepreneur, leader in any capacity whatsoever, the world of business and leadership has vastly changed, and trying to keep up with those changes in the global market, changes in technology, and how you're supposed to lead can be overwhelming for so many leaders today. However, I put it to you that if you don't take care of your leadership and in turn your corporate culture, you're simply the Titanic waiting to sink. So how can we not only stay afloat, but thrive and lead the way that allows us to create a legacy? Well, stay tuned because my guest today is David Hassell. He is the co-founder and CEO of 15Five, lightweight performance management software that combines continuous employee feedback, pulse surveys, objectives and key results, peer recognition, one-on-one meeting agendas. David Hassell has been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Fast Company, and was named as the most connected man you don't know in Silicon Valley by Forbes magazine. So ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and welcome David Hassell. And the crowd goes wild. Welcome, my friend.
Great to be here, Dove. Thanks.
Good to have you on. So first question's always first. In your own words, what makes David Hassell tick?
What makes me tick? Wow, big question.
Start with the easy stuff.
I'm really passionate about creating a new paradigm for business, right? So I think that we're seeing that some of the old business practices are leading to employees being disengaged, customers not trusting business, right? People having a massive distrust of business in general in a lot of cases.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a different way to do things. I think back in the 1970s, Milton Friedman came out and said, the purpose of a corporation is to maximize shareholder value. And there was some logic in that, but I think it was misguided, and it's actually sent us off in a bad direction. And I think, just coming out of the Conscious Capitalism CEO Summit a couple weeks ago, right. They've got a great model that says, look, corporations exist to create value for all the stakeholders, for the employees, for the vendors, for the customers, and the shareholders.
Right.
And when we do that, we kind of, the results speak for themselves. So I focus on the people angle of that. I'm excited about creating organizations where people thrive and the psychology and social science behind that.
We're a leadership show. How would you define leadership? Because I think that you're going to have a bit of a different twist on it, which I like.
Yeah. I define leadership as, you can't, a true leader doesn't force people to follow them. right? So they inspire people to follow them.
Yeah.
And they take people into a future that they would want to go, but maybe they can't take themselves there, right? So you're creating a future that they want to be a part of, right? And bringing a group of people together to create something that they couldn't do on their own. So it's defining that vision, it's inspiring them, it's leading the charge, and it's giving them a place where they can contribute from their greatest strengths to, create part of the whole.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've often used this metaphor in my speeches and my presentations. I said, put the religion to the side for a moment because that's not what we're talking about. But I like the metaphor of Moses as a metaphor, because here's a guy who led his people who followed him for 40 years to a place he would never see. And I think that's a great analogy of vision by a true leader, is I'm willing to walk you to a destination I may never get to.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a fabulous installation of understanding that piece, don't you think?
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Now, you started out as a computer engineer. You went on to co-found AdClips Network in 1999. You then got into kiteboarding adventure company, and you had people kiteboarding off the coast of Brazil. And that's just scratching the surface about your entrepreneurial endeavors. Right. How did you move into developing a software to track employee progress and do all that with 15.5?
My first business out of college, and started in 1999, AdClip, which became a company called Endai. I was very excited about building things. I wanted to create something new in the world. I wanted to go out and build something that it could create, and we'd make money, and that was it. But there wasn't really much of a deeper purpose. And I found myself a few years into that thinking, all right, well, this is kind of cool, but what impact are we really having here? And but because we were a scrappy little company, I couldn't afford to pay big salaries, and I needed people to work in the company. So I'd find folks who were often overlooked by other organizations. Maybe they had a gap in the resume. Maybe they didn't go to the best school, but I'd see their potential, right? And I'd bring them into the company and give them a lot of responsibility and help them. And one of those people is actually my co-founder of my company here. We worked together for 3 years in that company. And I got a lot of fulfillment from seeing people grow, learn, develop, and thrive when they would have been overlooked otherwise. And so that was kind of the seed for what I'm building now. Now, 7 years in on that, not being connected to something that I was, that I was really passionate about. I was pretty burned out. So the kite surfing adventure business was a bit of a break. Moved to Brazil. Brought executives from the U.S. who wanted to go kite surf and do an adventure trip. Did that for a couple of years, cleared my head. Then I said, all right, look, if I'm going to start another business, the likely scenario, if I have any degree of success, is I'm going to be doing this for somewhere between 7 and 15 years. Like, you don't get that many times in your life to spend 7 to 15 years on something. No. So I said, I'm going to take my time here and make sure that it matters, that it's something that's personally meaningful to me, that I want to invest my time and energy in. And that'll have, ultimately, if I'm successful, a significant positive impact in people's lives. So that's how I ended up here.
It's interesting because I think that it's a very interesting connection, because I think that when we think of technology, we tend to dehumanize. We tend to think, well, that takes the humanity out of it. But obviously, from reading the stuff around you and the things that you've done, you're obviously very much about the human factor, yet you developed a technology company. Help our listeners, our viewers, understand that in the context of what it is that 15.5 stands for. Because probably many people have never heard of it. Great insight there. I think that in many cases, technology can be dehumanizing, right? It separates us. We find ourselves more isolated. The impetus for 15.5 was actually to rehumanize business. In fact, I think I own the domain rehumanizedbusiness.com. I haven't launched anything there yet, but that's really the impetus behind what we're doing. I like it.
And I think that, as we've built bigger and bigger businesses, and we've used these metaphors of like business is the machine, right? It's inputs and outputs and cogs and wheels, and right. And we think about we start to abstract ourselves from the human beings in the companies, right? They become lines in a spreadsheet, right? They're human, quote, human resources. If you want to be horrified, look up the definition of resource on Wikipedia, and you'll stop calling anybody a resource.
Exactly.
Because they basically say it's something that can be burned up and created. You can turn into value that in the process is consumed or made unavailable. And that's what we do. It's horrendous, right? So I really appreciate the companies who are leading the charge and saying, like, we're not going to have a VP of HR. We're going to call our people, VPs of people or VPs of people and culture, right? And I think that technology can be used as a force for good for bringing us together. Mm-hmm. And our software is not designed to actually create more distance. In fact, it's best done when it's in combination with face-to-face communication. Right. So we've designed software to start to create the right kind of conversations between managers and employees, so that they're learning more about each other. The managers are more in touch with what's happening with their people. So when they do a face-to-face meeting, they don't have to waste time getting updates. They don't have to think about what are the right questions to ask. They can dive right into the most important things. So we're using it really as a structure to bring people closer together, which isn't what technology often does.
Yeah, and like you said, often it doesn't. It keeps people pushed away. And the idea behind it from 15.5, what I read was that it's the idea that is 15 minutes to write a report, 5 minutes to read it on any employee or any situation. Is that correct?
Yeah, on a weekly basis. So This is something the founder of Patagonia, Yvon Chouinard, popularized as far back as the mid to late 1980s. And there were some companies that he was way ahead of his time in terms of a lot of the stuff that he was doing. But we turn that into software, and it's the heartbeat of what we do. It's we call it a weekly check-in. It's lightweight. It's regular. It's not the annual or every other year employee feedback survey. And it's not anonymous. It's actually dialogue between managers and employees. But if you're an executive or a CEO, you get insights into what's happening throughout your company and get a greater pulse on the company, because you can weigh in on all those conversations that are happening.
So let's imagine for a moment the CEO is watching this, listening to us. They have, somewhere between 5 and 8 people in their C-suite at the top level. So they get between 5 and 8 reports. That should take them about 5 minutes to read each one.
So it's about 30 minutes on a commute, and you're briefed as to all the key things that are happening with your people. How are they feeling? How are they progressing on their objectives this quarter? What are they focused on this next week? What did they accomplish last week? Where are they stuck? What's going well? You get to see who they're acknowledging. We have this real fun thing we call high fives. So everyone gets to give high fives at the end of the week to other peers or teammates. And then, as you're going through that, you can say, okay, let's add this one point to our one-on-one agenda or this other thing. So the next time we actually meet in person, I don't have to waste half the meeting saying, tell me what's up, right? We're already briefed, and we can say, okay, let's use this FaceTime, which is the highest bandwidth time we have with people, to actually to dial in on those important points. Now the other great thing is, not only do they get the insights from their direct reports, but they get it from a level below as well. So, say your VP of marketing or your head of sales has his or her team reporting to them. They may pass up certain items from their team, or the CEO can drill down and see, what's happening with this person on the marketing team, or what's happening in general with the marketing team, because you can look at information in aggregate and get a pulse for what's happening. So it kind of gives, it gives the CEO almost the power that, like Facebook did for our social networks, that allows us to be connected to 10 to 100 times more people than we would be able to without it. CEOs are able to be connected to 10 to 100 times more employees than they would be able to without it. They can go in and engage in conversation, or just like something and just let the employees know, hey, I'm present. I know what's going on.
Now, in my last book, which was Fiercely Loyal, this book here, I actually wrote about Patagonia.
Oh, you did? That's great.
I wrote about them because to me they were a company that seemed to really understand how to develop loyalty with their people and with their customers. And I had read, of course, that the original idea for 15.5 originated with your ideas that came out of Yvon Chouinard's, what he was doing with Patagonia. Were you guys involved together at the beginning?
We weren't. It was actually there was a group there using us at one point. I had heard about the idea through a fellow entrepreneur who ironically thought his dad had invented it. But then we traced it back through his father, who was a multiple Inc. 500 CEO, and then I found this article in the 1988 issue of Inc. magazine called "I'm sorry, Yvonne's out surfing," which was the response that the reporter would get every time he'd call to try to interview Yvonne. And he's like, this guy's always surfing. How is he running this business? What's going on here? And then they wrote the article about how he used this 15-5 concept as a way to know what was going on in the business. Even when he spent half the year surfing and climbing mountains, he was tuned in.
Do you have a relationship with Yvonne? No?
We don't. No.
That's unfortunate. He's actually been the seed birth of this, at least.
I know. Yes.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Because I actually love what that company has done, and I reference them as a place of culture, but also on the social responsibility side when they did the whole campaign around "Don't buy new from us, sell the stuff you're not using." I was like, yeah, what company does that?
I know. It's really amazing. They really have such a high standard of ethics, and it's really wonderful. And it's through that that's how they create deep customer loyalty too.
Absolutely.
Customers are like, wow, these people actually really care, and they're putting their mouth, they're standing behind their values in a way that could hurt their business.
Yeah. Right? And isn't that the absolute test, David? When I'm willing to do something that could damage my business. I mean, for me, I always the reference I just got was I was chatting with a friend of mine on the weekend, and he said, "Have you seen Porsche's new vehicle?" And I said, "No." He said, "Oh, they're going after Tesla with this new vehicle." He goes, "It's a fantastic new electric vehicle." And I go, "No, they're not going after Tesla." And he goes, "Yeah, it actually says that in the article." I said, "No, they're not." And he said, "Why do you say that?" I said, "Because Elon Musk gave away the copyrights."
Right.
Let all go. Said, I'm not here. It's not about making money. It's about making cleaner transport. So here's all the copyright, all those things available to you. And for me, when I look at that, that's like this thing with Patagonia. It's like,
that's right.
You actually mean this shit. This is not just a marketing ploy or a good leverage piece. You actually mean this? That is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and then think about the loyalty people are going to have to Tesla as a result of that.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I mean, even if you like a Porsche, you go, you know what? I really like Porsches, but this guy really wants to clean the planet. And if the values match around a clean planet, boom, dead in the water.
100%.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. So I just love that. Now, one of the things you and I believe, agree on, in that same book, in my book, Fiercely Loyal, and it's one of the main things that I speak about from the platform. I speaking about it before it became a new trendy thing to say, which I still think most people don't understand, is that vulnerability is power. And that if you're going to lead in a really magnificent way, you have to lead with vulnerability. And if you're over 40, which you might be edging towards, if you're over 40, you probably got the conditioning that vulnerability is weakness. And I know that you don't see it that way. Tell us about the power of vulnerability in your business and what you do inside of your organization.
Yeah, such a great question. And I believe it really is the key, because vulnerability requires a degree of courage, right?
Absolutely.
But it leads to increased trust. Right, and there's a great word that I heard from an event I went to. They said, "Be vulnerageous," which is right? Yep. So what we do, we've been around for we've had this product out for 5.5 years. We've only had 2 employees voluntarily leave the company in that time. One of them opted out because he wasn't hitting his numbers, and we would have let him go in about a month anyway. Mm-hmm. And one wanted to work on a different technology stack, and that wasn't possible in our company. So essentially, none of it had to do with actually leaving the company. We have that, we've created that culture of fierce loyalty. One of the things that we do every Friday morning, it's optional, but a good degree of the company shows up, is we do something called Question Friday. And this is a non-business question. Every month, someone gets appointed the question master, and when your month is up, you appoint it to someone else. And we get on a video call for 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, and someone poses a question. And it could be everything from what was your first car, to give me what's something you let's see, what's something that you inherited from your parents that you've worked to overcome? So it could be, I mean, we do some pretty vulnerable questions, quite
Yeah.
honestly. And there's an opportunity. People give short answers and some stories, but we let each other in our lives as human beings, right? And we get to connect and know each other, right? And the level of trust and connection that we have in this organization is unmatched, like
Yeah.
anything I've ever seen. And and so that's an example of creating vulnerability on a team level. But then as leadership, right?
Yeah.
I don't always have all the answers. We're not always we've been doing great lately, but there have been periods of time where things have been challenging, and I think it's the natural inclination is to put up a front and hide and pretend like you know all the answers and like everything's okay
Of course.
and whatnot. But people can sense that, right? And
It's
I
one of the things
think
I said I love about millennials. They have bullshit meters the size of the moon.
yes. So you think you're protecting yourself, and you're really just shooting yourself in the foot anyway. So
Exactly,
you might
because they
as well be
go, "Oh
vulnerable.
yeah, now you're full of shit." Okay, and they check out. It's
That's right.
fascinating. It's fascinating.
Exactly right.
And it's interesting because you brought up something that it's part of the work that we do actually when we go into companies, because we're about building a purpose-driven leader and a purpose-driven executive board and a purpose-driven organization. And part of that work is the intimacy of culture. And we talk about the intimacy of culture, and the analogy I give you is this, and people go, because as leaders we go, "Well, I don't want to let them know." And I say, "Do you want their trust?" And they go, "Yeah." And I go, "Okay, so simple example. On one side of you, in your mind, on your right side, I want you to imagine somebody you've known for 3 to 5 years who is a trusted, loyal friend." And they go, "Yeah." I said, "Can you picture that?" "Yes." "Great." On the left-hand side of you, I want you to picture somebody who is an acquaintance that you've also known for 3 to 5 years.
Mm.
What's the difference between the two? You can't say time, so what's the difference? And they go, "I
Wow.
don't know." And I go, "Yeah, you do. They know your shit and you know theirs. There's reciprocal vulnerability. And that's what
Yes.
loyalty is." And so by doing that piece that you're doing, creating that intimacy, letting people in, and my sort of asterisk next to the thing is to say, this is not about emotional vomit. When we say, you can be
Yeah.
vulnerable, it's not, well, I'm going to get on this video call that we have every Friday and just emotionally vomit on everybody for an hour. No. It's called discernment. It requires
That's right.
a certain level
That's
of
right.
intelligence too.
Yeah.
But it's powerful to watch the shift. I've watched the shift with a founder of an organization we were working with, multi-generational, who nobody trusted. And
Yeah.
we did this exercise with him, and everybody changed their opinion about him in 20 minutes.
Wow.
In
That's
20
amazing.
minutes. Now, of course, he has to keep that up. That could be tricky, but
Yes.
it's showing the power of this. How do you step into this yourself, David? How do you, as a human being and as a leader of this organization, how do you step into it?
I try to be open and clear with the team. We do a weekly stand-up meeting, all hands meeting on Monday mornings, right? And we share all the numbers. We share our objectives and key results. And I'll be the first to point out where there are things where I think that maybe I'm not on track as a leader, and what I'm doing is I think it's having my leadership team and having the company see me as a human being and not just the CEO is wearing some mask, I think is the key thing. And I think participating as much as everybody else does in these things. The other thing we do these little micro practices. I call them micro practices at the beginning of our meetings, on ramps and off ramps. So we had our leadership meeting this morning, and folks are coming in. Okay, we said, all right, let's do a one phrase check in. Just to reveal what is the emotional state we're bringing to the meeting right now. And we might say, I'm feeling pretty tired right now, or I just had a really rough night of sleep, or my kids have been sick, or whatnot. But we have an opportunity to just share, where we're at, right? And then we what was the other thing? One of our product meetings, we say, what's your fun meter? We come in, we just do it's just like a way to gauge where are people at, right?
Exactly.
Like revealing something that's internal, and it's okay to have a low score. It's okay to be a 3 or a 4 one day.
But I think you said something very important there, because I think, I wrote a piece about 6 months ago, and what I wrote about was called Psychics and Sycophants, The Death of Leadership.
Mm.
And what it is these leaders who like to say, well, everybody here is upset about this, or everybody here is because and it came out of a meeting where we were working with a team around communication, and the founder, he's holding on.
Yeah.
He's running the Charlton Heston. You won't take this from my cold dead hand, right? And he said, we all think this is a waste of time. And I said, really? Is that right? And he goes, yeah. I said, that's interesting. I said, let's test that with the group. Now, what he didn't know is I'd been with the group for about 10 minutes beforehand, and they'd all told me how much they were getting out of it.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Now, by the way, were they telling me the truth? I don't know. Maybe they were being Canadian. Maybe they're just being nice.
Right.
However, he says, we all think this is a waste of time. So I said, well, let's find out. So I asked them, and all but one of them said, well, I think there's and they started backpedaling. And for me, it was a really great example. And I said, this is why you need me here. And they said, why? Because it ain't safe to tell the truth.
Wow.
Because they told me something different when you were not here. Now they're telling me something different now you are here. You're playing psychic and they're playing sycophant. They're going along with you. This says it's not a safe environment. And this is why communication has to change. This is why you need me. And at this point, I said, I may have just talked myself into getting fired. And I'm okay with that.
Wow.
And
yes.
It's like, and guess what? We got fired. And somebody said, how did you feel about that? And I said, good.
Yeah.
I felt good. I was hired on the premise of changing the communication and changing the culture around communication to have a more authentic relationships, to create an authentic environment so that people could fulfill their purpose. And that's going to break down at that level and they're not willing to step in, it's good that I'm out. Do I miss the fee? Of course. So what?
Yep. 100%. It is so fascinating. I just saw, I think, a tweet by Patrick Lencioni. He talks a lot about this stuff, as you know, I'm sure. Yeah, he said something. If I had one measure to gauge the health of a company, I would look at the health of the leadership team.
Absolutely.
Right, and that's where it starts. It has to start at the top. It has to start with creating an environment where you can have healthy ideological conflict, and that requires a high degree of trust. And you only get to trust through vulnerability. That's it.
Absolutely. Now, this is important stuff. So I'm going to ask you this question: in hiring, priority, hard skills or soft skills, and why? If you had to pick one first.
Oh, all right. Soft skills, 10 times, 10x. I mean, if you don't have the soft skills, the challenge. I think I would lump soft skills in with an alignment of purpose and values as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? The person doesn't have an alignment of purpose and values. It doesn't matter how good they are. It's going to cause issues on the team. It's going to be a cancer in the organization. So you will find someone with the skills. If they don't have the soft skills, they're going to be like a bull in a china shop, and that's not going to go well. So it's I think that we're in an age where if you're going to create a high performing team of human beings working together at their highest level, right? And it's not just about one person performing at their highest level. It's about the team performing at their highest level. Emotional intelligence is table stakes.
Yeah, it's. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that part of the challenges is generational, no doubt about it.
Yep.
But the almost like soft skills is swearing. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that's soft skills. We'll leave that to HR, human resources, and we don't deal with that. And I'm like, I don't even know how you're operating. So tell me what you see of the danger of running a business that is purely bottom line focused.
I think you can get, if you're purely bottom line focused, I think it can work for a period of time.
Yep.
Right? It can work for a period of time, but you're going to erode so much of the long-term value of the organization. You're going to erode the trust of your customers, because if you're bottom line focused, you're actually you're setting your interests up against your customer's interest to eke out as much value as you can from them. Right? You're trying to get to extract as much out of your customers as you can, to extract as much out of your employees as you can, to extract as much out of your vendors as you can. You create ill will, and then that builds up, and you break trust.
Absolutely.
And if you're committed as an organization to create value for everyone who comes in contact with with the organization, which we are, so our goal is to create value for the employees, right? To support them in thriving. And what happens when employees thrive? The business thrives. Right. So create value for your customers. We're customer centric. One of our values is commit to customer success and delight. Right. So we have a high net promoter score. Our customers rave about us. They tell everyone else about our product. And guess what? More customers come.
Of course.
Right. And it creates a feedback loop. So we're focused on creating value for even our people who aren't customers. We create great blog posts and put content out to help people who might not even ever become a customer, but we're always thinking, is this additive? Are we actually helping the world create better organizations and better leaders and all of that?
So let's go to that for a minute, because officially you're a software company. Officially, yep. It's about managing, monitoring progress. Officially, yep. That's right. I write for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
I write for you guys, and I know I'm not the only one to write on leadership for you guys and on loyalty and on purpose stuff and all those kinds of things. Why? At a simple bottom line level, why? What the hell are you doing? You're wasting resources.
Yeah, it would seem that way. It might seem that way. But when you look at the numbers, and here's the thing, it's like, the funny, there's this interesting paradox when you're so focused on the bottom line, right? Where you immediately go is, all right, well, we gotta do everything we can to increase the top line and everything we can to decrease the costs, right? You're just going to go straight for it.
Right.
We're not bottom line focused, but we watch it and monitor it, right? But it's the result. I just had a software as a service. This is the category of company we are, SaaS company. There was a SaaS, private company SaaS metrics report that comes out once a year. It came out last week. And the average revenue per employee of companies our size, the median, we're 2x the median for the number of people we have. So we produce with half as many people what most companies need twice as many to do in terms of revenue.
That's phenomenal.
We're, quote, not bottom line focused, but we're outperforming everyone by 2x. I
just love that. And I think it's such I can't think of a better word, but it's a lovely lesson.
Right.
It's a lovely lesson. Here's a company who are focused on developing their people, who are culture focused, and they're outperforming. And do you think you're an anomaly?
I don't.
No.
I went, not at all. I went to I was at the Conscious Capitalism CEO Summit last week with John Mackey, founder of Whole Foods, and the metrics they're showing on these companies that are stakeholder oriented, not just shareholder oriented, but they're focusing on creating value for all stakeholders. They outperform at least 2x to 1 over the long term.
Yeah.
It's really impressive, and I think what the great thing about capitalism is eventually people start doing what works, and I think not everyone knows that this is actually a better way yet, and they're starting to, and I think that it's happening.
Well, as Feynman said, Richard Feynman, the Nobel Prize winning physicist, said, in order for things to change, sometimes the old guys just have to die.
That's right.
It's not for the lack of wanting, but just sometimes, as I said, that cold dead hand thing, and they're just gonna keep that grip as long as they possibly can. And sometimes it's kind of like, well, let's just usher you out of the door a little bit.
Yeah. Right.
Now, I know that I said I write for 15.5, and I know that you're focused on development. Tell us why you believe it's the importance of actually not just taking care of your culture, but developing each individual in the organization. Why does that matter, David?
I think it comes back to being able to be so highly effective as an organization, right? When you're a small company, you as the CEO or leader, you're doing everything yourself, right? And then, as the company grows and grows and grows, your capacity to produce and to produce a business really comes to your ability to lead and manage. Mm-hmm. And you're relying on every person that works for you, whether it be 10 people or 10,000. A lot of people, I remember back when, Steve Jobs was at the helm of Apple, everyone was like, oh, Steve Jobs, look at everything he did. Well, there were 55,000 employees at Apple doing what Apple did. Right. And they all had to be performing at a pretty high level. They created an incredible culture where, they said, look, this is going to be hard, but you're going to get to do the best work of your life. of your life by working here. And I think that people in general have far more capability and potential than they're exhibiting at any given time. And I'm proud to say that, you know, the folks that we've hired at 15.5, we've looked for potential, we've looked for hard skills, we've looked for soft skills, but we've also said, all right, I can see that this person's going to continue to grow and develop. And so the team we have today is far more capable than the same team a year ago.
Right.
And so they're actually producing more value today than they were a year ago because we've created a culture where they're continuing to learn, grow, develop, evolve, and what we call become their best selves. That's ultimately the whole the whole premise behind 15.5. If you've ever watched Simon Sinek, he's one of our investors and advisors and old friend. And we've created this why, this mission and vision about creating space for people to be their greatest selves, unlocking the potential of every member of the global workforce. That's why we get up in the morning, because 70% of employees are checked out, are disengaged at work.
Terrible.
Right? And it's not just terrible for business, which it is, but it's terrible for our society.
It's terrible for the soul of the human beings and the soul of our society.
It is terrible for the soul of the human being. Now imagine you flip that statistic and say, all right, 70% are now engaged. Not only are those people more fulfilled and they're creating, they're more fulfilled in their family life and the communities transformed, but the businesses are more successful, right? Everybody wins. Yeah. So why not?
Now, one of the things that, when we go in to work with a company, we're first brought in and we first, we agreed we're going to start working with them. And my opening thing to say to them is, listen, we're here to help you grow this business, grow your corporate culture, have everybody on purpose, et cetera, et cetera. But here's the side thing that I love about it and I want you to get. And they go, what? I go, I want to improve your marriage. I want to improve the way you are with your children. Yeah. Right? I want to improve the way you parent. And not by teaching you marital things or teaching you parenting things, but by making you a better, more soulfully connected person, because you will become a better father, mother, sister, brother, whatever it is, in the process of that. And this is why, for me, I think that this is one of the things I'm very strong on, is that there is no separation between your professional self and your personal self. If there is, you're clearly full of shit. You're inauthentic.
That is the worst fallacy that's ever been proposed about this whole work-life separation thing or balance or even anything. Because it's like, what do you think? The person who's coming in from their family at home walks through the threshold of the office and all of a sudden they're a different person now?
Exactly.
Like they're not bringing the angst and the challenge that they have at home into the office and vice versa?
And vice versa, absolutely, yeah. And this is why I love that you guys are focused on the development of the individual. Because, it's so powerful. We were working with a company recently, and I mentor CEOs, and I'm a high-level coach for them as well. And one of them was saying to me, he said, would you be willing to do something for us? And I said, what's that? He said, we want to put a couples weekend together for our executive team and their partners. And to be focused purely on relationship. And I said, absolutely, because he knows I have a background in that. And I said, absolutely. And I said, but here's what I want to know. Why? And he said, because I know if they're happier at home, they'll be happier at work. And I go, da-da.
Yeah.
Like it's so obvious.
I know.
When we've worked together for a while, you can see it. But I think that, again, this bottom line, people say, well, it's too much of an investment. Too much of a cost to bring Dov in. Uh-huh. And I go, then you're an idiot. And I've actually said, then you're an idiot. This is an investment. If you can't see this as an investment, you're absolutely right. It's a cost.
Yep.
But once you get that it's an investment, it'll impact your bottom line and impact, and as you said, engagement. Yes. Because what is engagement? I want to be here.
That's right.
Disengagement is I can't wait to get out of here.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly
simple.
Right. It is that simple.
Right? So you want your people engaged. You want them to go home and say, hey, I work at this amazing company.
Yes.
My CEO rocks. And to talk about you, because this is one of the things in the book where I wrote about Fiercely Loyal. I said, CEOs complain because you've got people who are leaving you every 1.2 to 2 years, and they're going back into the talent pool. Now, part of that is they're leaving crappy jobs, but part of it is that millennials are high stimulus, and they want new things. But if you had a great company, they leave and go back into the talent pool, and they tell the talent pool to go work for you.
That's right, exactly. That
As
is
Branson said, train your people so well that they can leave you, and treat them so well that they won't. Isn't that awesome? I mean, I think that's a
I
brilliant.
love that. That is
Yes,
a great
so,
quote.
like that nails it. It
Yeah.
absolutely nails it. For me, when I look at the most successful people, I know there's a negative connotation to this, but it's not that way for me. I believe the most successful people in the world are obsessed. They're obsessed about something, whatever that might be. And the analogy I give is, if there's a movie and there's a bit in that movie about the thing you're obsessed about, that's the part of the movie you talk about. If a book comes out about it, you have to talk about it. If there's a conversation going on at the cocktail party and you're over here and they're over there, you got to go over there because you got to get part of it.
Yeah.
What is David Hassell obsessed
man.
with?
It's very funny. I just gave a talk this past weekend at a founders meetup for one of our investment groups with one of my co-founders. And 5 minutes before the meeting, I'm adding three more slides to the presentation. We've been building on different ways to think about and models around, like, what are the elements that lead to someone being to unlocking their potential. It's the thing. I mean, it's obvious. It's what we do. But I am obsessed with it. Studying Maslow's hierarchy and the various studies around intrinsic motivation, and Dan Pink's work around autonomy, mastery, and purpose, and his counterpart at Harvard Business School who said, it's that and connection and relatedness, and Absolutely. How does our brain work, and what does the neuroscience say, and how do we create psychological safety in organizations? I could go on and on.
Shut up. Now just stop this, because you're sounding like me.
So yes, I'm quite obsessed with all of that, and I love it. I love it, and I love that I get to kind of geek out on this stuff, and then try to do what we can to productize it and deliver it en masse to people.
Where do you think, looking at you interact with a lot of different companies with your product, and as you said, you speak and you go to these conferences and stuff. Where do you feel like most leaders are failing today? The ones who are really struggling, where are they failing?
I think it's I think it comes down to having a deep connection to both the purpose, like the why underneath what they're doing. Right. That it's not just the default, that it's not just a job, that it's not just for the salary. And I know those things are so important, and people get caught up in working for organizations because they have obligations. But I think that there is choice in terms of picking something that you are passionate about, and then the human connection, right? Recognizing your own humanity, the humanity of all your people, and it's actually bringing an element of care for the people in your organization. Because I think it's so easy to get caught up in, I need to get all these things done, and I'm going to shut down. It's like, I don't know. It's almost like love is a dirty word in business for some reason. But it's actually, dare I say, bringing love into the workplace, and actually saying it's platonic, but it's like, I really love these people and I want to support them in doing great work. And we're going to do this together because you know what? I'm probably going to spend more time with them than I am with my wife. Right.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's interesting. When I work with clients, everybody I work with one-on-one, we start work out, we have initial conversation, 20 minutes or so, and then there's an application process. Let's say they get through that and they can start working with me. And I say to them, we're going to work together for a short contract, which is about 10 sessions. And I say, at the end of that, we're both going to reevaluate whether we can work together. And they go, and I'll say, for you, it will be on your own growth, and you'll decide that against how I'm facilitating. And I said, for me, it will be on your growth, but it'll be on something else. And they go, what? And I said, this is going to sound weird. And they go, okay. And at the end of that time, I've got to be in love with you.
Wow, that's great.
And they go, what do you mean? And I said, there's nothing romantic about it. It's not sexual. But if I don't love you, if I don't care about you enough, I'm not going to serve you. I can't serve you in the way that I want to. I've got to fall in love with something within you, something you probably don't even see yet yourself. That's deep greatness that I see within people. And I've got to fall in love with that and believe that I can facilitate that. If I can't, probably not good for us to work together. Go away, it's okay. I can help you to a point, but and it's that, when you talk about that, I really do appreciate that you're willing to say leadership is about love. And I think that so few leaders will not only don't get it, but I think so few leaders will ever get it.
Yeah.
And that is what I love about what you're doing with your company. I love what you're doing in your own leadership. And I really want to thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Now, to the other side of that, I talked about the obsession, but to the other side of that, it is my experience. I don't know what you know about my story, but back in 1990, I fell off a mountain, got smashed to pieces. I've had between 10 and 12 reconstructive surgeries. I can't remember if it's 10 or 12 because I've lost count. But got pretty mangled up. And I believe that human beings all have a fall. Some of us falls is physical, like mine. Some people it's a car crash. Some people it's a brain aneurysm. For some people it's a horrible diagnosis or a bankruptcy or a divorce or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But the people who really succeed, I think, have that fall and it shifts them, or afterwards it shifts them. Can you recall your fall?
There's two that come to mind.
Sure.
I think that the first one was realizing 5 or 6 years into my first company, right, that I was just trying to do it for the money, and that there just wasn't. I kind of hit this rock bottom of feeling really empty. I'm like, what have I done? Like, what, I haven't really. What good have I done here? Right. And for who? And to come to that realization and say, all right, well, at least I cared about the people. I cared about what we were building internally in the company. But I realized that was missing. And then the second, when I started this company, 15.5, I was about a year and a third in, and it was a struggle. I realized that even though I'd set out with these great intentions to serve, that I was still holding it as there was still a selfish aspect, I might say. Like it was like, this is my company, and I'm doing this, and there's like, I'm trying to create value for myself, and I'm trying to push everybody and get everything done, and I'm not getting the results I want. And I had this moment of saying, okay, I think that there's something not right here. There's something that's not working. And in that moment, upon reflection, I took a step back, and I really committed to move from this paradigm of me to we. And I said, you know what, this isn't my company. This is our company. We're going to do this together. I'm going to invite in the investors that we're bringing in, the employees we're bringing in. We're going to create something together here. And I turned it over. I said, I don't have to do it all. Like, I'm going to create the space for everyone else to step up and feel a sense of ownership.
What was the catalyst that got you to that place? What was the catalyst that got you to suddenly realize that? Because you realized that in your previous company, that it had to be about something else. But you were, this company was seemingly about something else, but you had to get to it again. And by the way, I should say I fell off 4 mountains.
Oh, you're kidding.
It's the last one that counts. But, so I think we have multiple falls until we wake up.
But I think that's it. It's like, I think I remembered some of the, like what I was intending to do differently, but then realizing I wasn't. And it was just, it felt like no matter what I was doing, it was a struggle. Like I think you get to a point where it's like, okay, this isn't working. Something's wrong. I need to take a deeper look. Yeah. And I went out on a long hike, and that was it.
That's powerful. So again, we're talking about vulnerability here, and I appreciate your vulnerability and your openness with this. What is something that you're personally working on, or you're working on inside of the company that you're dealing with right now? Something you're maybe struggling with, or you want to grow and develop inside of yourself or the organization that you want to shift?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, inside of the organization, we're doing a lot of great things right now. I feel like we're in a bit of a golden period.
Right.
We've had our best month of growth ever last month, and it's been really, really wonderful. I'm looking for personally on how to shift my, where I put my energy and attention to actually maximize my own energy. I find that I get tired pretty easily these days. I am over 40 now, so I don't know if that has much to do with it. But how do I, how do I balance the demands of being the CEO of this company with taking time to take care of myself when I might feel guilty about doing that? And so I think, overcoming that space of like, okay, rest is important and exercise is important, and and those things they shouldn't necessarily be the first to go.
No.
Right. It should be the other way around.
Yeah,
and
but unfortunately for most leaders, it is the last.
Right. Yeah.
You're the first rather. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Who is a leader you admire? Who is a leader you see as doing it differently?
You mentioned Richard Branson. I've really appreciated his, his stance on, look, customers shouldn't be first. It's employees first, because if you take care of your employees, they'll take care of your customers.
Yeah.
And then, the delegation that he's done. Yeah, I think that, I appreciate his stance in that.
It's interesting. I read last week, and I will say that I have not fact checked. But I read last week that his IQ was only in the 90s.
Is that right?
And I thought, there's a fabulous example of why EQ is more important than IQ.
Yeah.
Right? Because the guy's phenomenally successful. We dream of being that level of success.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
With a less than 100 IQ, every time, because he's all about people. He's all about relationships.
That's right.
Phenomenal.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. What's something that when you look at leadership today that would keep you awake at night, that worries you or scares you or concerns you about leadership in the generalized sense of leadership? So it could be political, it could be corporate, it could be community-wise. What is it that bothers you, keeps you up, maybe concerns you?
I think that we all have, kind of the light and dark within us, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that the what is the word? The temptation to use power, even unconsciously, right, for our own self-serving needs and to compromise our ethics and honor, honestly, versus choosing the path of leading from a place that is win-win for everyone. I think that, like we all have to make those choices moment to moment. And I worry about just the temptation of the human condition that, more people might not choose the right path.
Yeah, I had a conversation with my wife last night, and she says, the simplicity of it is that the Spider-Man quote still stands. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, with great power comes great responsibility.
That's it. Yeah.
And I went, that's pretty powerful. That's about it, really.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think we live in a time. I mean, one of the things I love about social media is you get caught on everything. As Gary Vaynerchuk said, if you're aware of that, it's like having a camera here all the time, and you should pay attention. But at the same time, I think that a lot of stuff gets misinterpreted, but a lot of people seem to become less accountable than ever around these kinds of things and say I was misquoted, and people they're misquoted, they're quoted out of context. But damn, we have to have some responsibility around that. We need to really own that is, I said to my wife, well, people misspeak. And she said, yeah, but if you are a high level person, you have a lot of influence and a lot of power. If you misspeak, you must immediately, even if you don't catch it yourself, you have to surround yourself. My wife is in my business. She's a leadership person too. But she says you have to surround yourself with people who will not bullshit you, who will tell you the truth and say, listen, that came across like this, and you might want to issue an apology now, as opposed to waiting for it to come out on social media and somebody else just slamming the hell out of you. And it's like, again, you're right. With great power comes great responsibility, but therefore great responsibility to vulnerability and accountability. Right. Ta-da! We're back in that circle. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
So good. So good.
So as we get towards the end of our show, I want to ask you, you probably heard that, I know you've been interviewed 1,000 times, but you've probably heard that question of, well, if you could go back and give advice to your 25-year-old self, what would you say? Screw that. Let's forget that one. If your 70-year-old self could step
Uh-huh.
back in time and advise you,
Oh, there we go. That's a good one.
what do you think your 70-year-old self would be giving you as a little bit of guidance?
Hmm. Uh, I know it's kind of a trite or contrite saying, but don't forget to stop and smell the roses, right? Just take some. I have a little boy who's about to turn 4, and
Sweet.
I think there's just so many great things happening and so many things to be grateful for, and I, like many people, can get caught up in the whirlwind of it all and just keep running from one thing to the next. So, just take some more moments of pause.
Yeah, that's probably good advice from your 70-year-old self.
Yeah.
So as we finish up, tell me something you would really like the leaders who are watching, listening the show today. What's the one practical thing you wish they would take away from our conversation today?
I would say that, you have more power than you know to support somebody in your life and in your business, a direct report, in stepping into the next level of their greatness. And one of the things that you can do is it's a practice that I call seeing the white space. Most of us are really good at assessing what is actually there in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
Few of us are good at like seeing what could be there, right? It's kind of the gift of the artist of seeing what's possible. But start to wonder, what is this person capable of? For each of your direct reports, just have that wondering. And then hold a high intention for them. Hold a high intention for them in the conversations that you have with them. The power of your belief in your people is so powerful, and so that's what I'll leave you with.
That's fabulous. Now I just got to ask you this because I got to. Did you used to get shit at school, David Hasselhoff?
Hasselhoff. Oh yeah, the kids. I could never understand when I was 5 years old.
Was your nickname Kit or something?
All the kids wanted to play Knight Rider with me, and I didn't understand why. I hadn't seen the show yet.
Because as soon as when I first heard your name from David, I was like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, because I always think about names that get your ass kicked at school.
Then he had to do Baywatch. It's
yeah, and if you ever decide to leverage it, you can say that you're a big hit in the music world in Germany.
Right,
There's all kinds of things. Well, it's been great having you here, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you for everything that you've shared. It's been very valuable. I sincerely appreciated it.
Likewise. It's great. Thanks so much.
Thanks. I hope you'll stay with us to the end. And to you, dear listener, viewer, I want to encourage you to, as always, don't just listen to this. Please, I know you listen to podcasts in the background as you drive or as you're doing something else. Stop. Take notes. Go back. Listen a second and a third time. We get notes from people all the time who tell us that they listen to our show 2-3 times because they're so jam-packed with so many gems. I encourage you to do that because this is where the shift will take place. It won't take place by going in the background. You actually have to put it in action. So I can challenge you and encourage you to do just that. Put it in action. And remember, the research consistently shows that one of the biggest challenges facing even the most successful companies is somewhat counterintuitive in that the fastest growing companies often hit a point where they realize that they're spending an absolute fortune attracting, training, and developing top talent only to have them leaving them at an alarming rate. If you're sick of investing in training and development of your talent only to have them leave you before you get your ROI, then come and talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com. fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide the essential leadership skills to rekindle and amplify the hidden loyalty assets inside of your organization by tapping into your purpose. And with that, I want to ask David, tell us where our listeners, our viewers can find out more about you and your organization.
Absolutely. You can find out 155 is the number 15, 15five.com. You can find me on Twitter at @dhassell. That's 2 S's, 2 L's, DHASSELL. And I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Fabulous. Thank you again. And for you, dear listener, remember, fullmontyleadership.com, providing you with the concrete soft skills to keep you and your organization at the top. Because you can't outsource authenticity. Remember to get yourself over to the Matrix from matrix.fullmontyleadership.com and get your authentic leadership matrix self-assessment tool. It's valued at $197. You get it for free for being a valued listener and viewer of our show. fullmontyleadership.com. Just put matrix at the front of that. You don't need a www. Till next time, this is Dov Baron saying, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about how you can be a little more thoughtful and a little more engaged with your people one at a time. Till next time, Dov Baron, and I'm out.